Good evening. I have 7 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order and ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Greg David. Mr. Tyler Dean.
Here.
Miss Emily Hamburg.
Here.
Mr. Tom Schmitz.
Here.
And Mr. John Welch.
Present.
And you have a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you. This evening we have Father Terry Hedrick with Church of the Resurrection on 37th Street to lead us in prayer. Father Hedrick.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, again, as the City Council of Bel Aire gathers, we begin this meeting by looking to you in the name of your Son, Jesus. We thank you for the promise that when we gather in his name, that you are there in the presence with us now by your Holy Spirit. And we give you thanks, Lord, that you are a good and gracious God, abounding in mercy and steadfast love. We pray specifically this night for the City Council of Bel Aire, and especially for Mayor Jim Benage, the City Council members, all the leaders of this community. Also, we want to remember our first responders, law enforcement, EMS, and firefighters. And so, Lord, we pray that you will reveal to the City Council tonight the knowledge of your will and all wisdom and spiritual understanding in order that they may be fruitful in their service for the community. Anoint them with the spirit of wisdom and charity and justice, that with steadfast purpose for the common good, they may faithfully serve in their offices to promote the well-being of all people in the Bel Aire community. We pray that you would grant that they may love mercy, do justice, and walk humbly with you. Now we ask all of this in the strong and wonderful name of our Savior Jesus, who lives and reigns with you and the Holy Spirit, one God, both now and forever. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Voters do. We'll move on to the consent agenda. So this evening on the consent agenda contains the minutes of the July 16th, 2024 regular city council meeting and my appointment of Jesse Miller to the Sedgwick County Fire District Number 1 Steering Committee. About a year ago, the steering committee was established by the fire board. At that time, no one expressed interest in serving on this committee, so I agreed to do this. Recently, Jesse Miller said he would like to be doing more for the city. After giving that some thought, I asked him if he would be interested in serving on the steering committee, and he sat in the meeting on July 25th and has told me it looks like a good fit for him. Mr. Miller's background in insurance should be a great addition to the steering committee, and I will resign my seat at the same time as Mr. Miller is appointed so that there will be no lapse for someone representing the city of Bel Aire.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as listed and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second. Motion by Mr. Welch, a second by Mr. David. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. The motion carries 5-0. And Mr. Miller is here in the audience this evening, so congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate your
Congratulations.
service. All right. Move on to discussion and approval of appropriation ordinance. This appropriation ordinance encompasses the July 9th and July 25th expenses and one payroll cycle. Expenditures amounted to $936,803. Of the reported expenses, $91,553 are for infrastructure costs for new developments, and these costs are paid through special assessments. I entertain a motion to approve the appropriations ordinance.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Dean.
I move we approve appropriations ordinance number 24-14.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Dean, a second by Ms. Hamburg. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Next item is the city requested appearances. So Ms. Tara Laughlin with Allen Gibson Hulick will give our annual audit presentation. Finance Director Barry Smith is also available to answer questions. Ms. Laughlin.
Good evening.
most of you, I think, have been on the council before when I've been here. So tonight, I am presenting the results of the fiscal year 2023 financial statement audit for the city. Brief introduction, Tara Laughlin, I'm a Senior Vice President at Allen Gibson Hulick and one of the head leaders of our government audit and assurance practice. I first off just want to thank Barry, who's new in this position to the city, and all the staff that help us throughout the audit process. It is a lot of work for your city staff to help assist us, get us support that we need in order to get through the audit smoothly. And I always just like to point out that, they were very willing to help us, responded quickly, provided what we needed in a timely manner, which really made the audit go smooth. The scope of our audit, we are engaged to issue an opinion on the financial statement audit. And so although the city does receive some federal funds, there's no single audit or compliance audit required just based on the amount that the city expended in fiscal year 23 of federal funds. So we only did the financial statement audit this year. And we did issue an unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements, which means you can rely on the information in there to make decisions that are within the financial statements. I always like to point out kind of the best place to kind of start looking at the financial statements is the management discussion analysis section, which is kind of that first main section of the financial statements. It does provide a nice overview of what happened financially with the city for the year and also has some comparisons to the prior year. So I always just like to point out that section of the financial statements to those charged with governance to look at. I'm now going to focus mostly on what we're required to present to you. So you should have received a letter of our required communications. So I'm going to highlight through this letter items that are specific to this year's audit. So I'm going to kind of start at the bottom of the first page. This just discusses whether there was any new significant accounting standards or policies implemented during the year. And for this year, there was not. There was a new standard that was effective for the city, but it wasn't significant related to how the city accounts for subscription technology arrangements. While this year that wasn't significant, next year we expect to have to do something with that. With the new ERP stuff was really happening in this current fiscal year, not last fiscal year. So we do expect some items out of that standard next year, but for fiscal year 23, really no significant changes. So what that means is if you're looking year over year comparisons, the change is likely due to just a change in activity or other things, not because items are accounted for differently. On page 2, we are required to discuss significant estimates that are within the financial statements. So the city does report financial statements under generally accepted accounting policies. So there is some estimation involved to be in line with those standards. There were no new estimates this year and no changes to how the city performed the estimates that are there. The biggest two really relate to retirement type activity. So the city's share of the CAPERS net pension liability at the state level, and then also the city's share of the CAPERS other post-employment benefit or OPEB liability. That's the D&D plan that falls under CAPERS as well. So it's a city share of that liability. But again, our responsibility as it relates to estimates is to ensure that management is performing those estimates under the accounting standards appropriately, that the information being used is reasonable, that the calculations are reasonable. And in all cases, we found that that was the case. Bottom of page 2, I've discussed this with those that have been on the council in prior years before. There are a handful of audited adjustments that we perform during the audit process. These audit adjustments, a majority of them just relate to converting the city's books from a budget basis, which is in line with Kansas statutes and what makes sense for the city to track during the year from an operational perspective to make sure you are in line with your budget, to the generally accepted accounting principles basis, which is a lot more estimates, accruals, et cetera, involved in that. And so over the years, we have helped with that conversion, and that's what these entries really are, is that conversion. So as far as day-to-day operations and accounting of day-to-day activity goes, no significant adjustments with that. It's really just that conversion process. And I have actually talked with Barry. I'm going to meet with him sometime in the next month or so. We're going to start talking about that and sharing, how do we help with that conversion? And slowly, I think they're going to take over some of that prep work. And so as long as their group provides us that information, it wouldn't be considered an audit adjustment then. So hopefully over the next year or so, those kind of wind down and the city provides them to us. But for now, that's what those adjustments are. Very similar to what's been done in the prior years as it relates to those. On page 3, I like to point this out. I always start my presentation with this, but it is kind of buried in the middle of the letter. Again, we had no difficulties with management during the audit process. They're all very willing, open, and very quick at giving us the information that we request. Also on that page, this was new last year, but I always like to point it out. This letter does go into how we ensure that we remain independent of the city, and what those guidelines are from the audit standards perspective of how we remain independent. So that's just general information about that independent standard. On page 4 then, we do have some internal control items. Again, these are very similar to what's been presented in prior years. The first one that starts at the bottom of page 4 and goes into page 5 is related to those audit adjustments that I already discussed, so I'm not going to rediscuss those. And so because we do a lot of audit adjustments for the GAAP perspective, we do have that control item there. And again, Barry and I are going to be working to hopefully kind of start whittling that down. So that first item there is a material weakness just because of the amount of entries that we perform at the GAAP level. The second item that's on page 5, kind of in the middle of the page, this is our remaining significant deficiency related to segregation of duties. So because the city is such a small environment, there are segregation of duties issues that are going to occur just because of the number of people you have staffed, but a lot of those do have some mitigating controls in place to help mitigate risk related to those areas. The municipal court area is kind of the last remaining one. And again, Barry and I have talked about, and they already have ideas of additional controls are going to start implementing to address that. So we'll look at that during next year's audit to have some additional reviews in place over the municipal court activity. And then finally, the last half of page 5 and into page 6, these are items that have been presented historically, and they have been significant deficiencies, but during last year's audit and into this year's fiscal year, or last year's fiscal year and into this year's 23's fiscal year, additional controls were put in place to help mitigate the risk. You're never going to be able to get rid of a segregation of duties issue, and with the city size, wouldn't it be cost beneficial to, but you can put additional controls in place to help mitigate risks in certain areas. And so those historically aren't presented in this letter, but I went ahead and put them in here so you guys could see the progression of it's gone from a significant deficiency, which is the middle level of control deficiency issues, to the lowest or best level of control deficiency by those mitigating controls. And you can read what those mitigating controls are. And the biggest thing every year now that we'll do with these items is to check to make sure that the mitigating controls are still in place. And we'll always communicate these to management so that they keep that on their radar in case you have turnover or anything like that. You want to make sure that you're refilling those responsibilities as far as those mitigating controls go. And so a lot of activity this year as far as those control deficiencies go in the good way. Things are shifting. Additional controls are getting put in place. So page 6, middle of page 6, this kind of just starts our general information that we provide to all of our clients, no matter what industry they're in. So just reminders about cybersecurity, make sure you're comfortable with what the city's doing there. Nothing specific necessarily to the financial statement audit, but just general information that would be beneficial for council members to know. So in closing, again, unmodified opinion, staff worked really well with us this year. Additional controls are getting put in place to kind of help alleviate some of those segregation of duties issues. And I will open it up to any questions that you might have.
Well, I do have a question about the GAAP conversion from budgeting to the GAAP, because state law requires us to do the budget a certain way. And it seems odd that when we do an audit, we have to do an adjustment. When state law, I think, also says we have to have these audits done. So why do we not just audit to the state law budget requirements?
Yeah, so there is for the state of Kansas, you are required to have an audit. You're correct. There is an option to elect out of generally accepted accounting principles financials and do what's called the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide financials, which is the budget basis, which would alleviate almost all of these entries that we have here. Unfortunately, due to some of the other agreements and debt agreements, some of your bond covenants require you to do GAAP financials. And so I know that's one conversation too that's being had with bond counsel of, can we figure out how to be able to let KMAG versus GAP? But those conversations are still going on. So in order to keep you compliant with the debt side, we're doing GAP financial statements.
So it's something we need to make sure on our bonds that we don't have that issue with the bond.
Yes, because a lot of
try to.
cities your size
I'm sorry?
do a lot of cities your size do the KMAG financials and not the GAP financials.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions for
Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Hamburg?
So talking about next year where you talked about Barry may do these conversions himself, the benefit would be there'll be less hours on your end doing the
Correct.
entries.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they wouldn't be, even though still in your system, they wouldn't get recorded necessarily. If they provide us the entries and we don't have to change the entries at all to get it into our system to produce the GAP financials, we would consider that a client adjustment, not an audit adjustment. And then you wouldn't see it here in this report.
Tara, is there any advantage us upgrading our ERP system this year to the audit next year?
Yes, I haven't been in it much, but Barry showed me something. So we'll be able to get, which is pretty common for governments. Auditors are able to get like a read-only access to where, now all of your invoices are being scanned in with the line items of the expense. So instead of us coming and asking for 50 invoices from your staff, we can get access to your system and be able to click in and pull the invoices up ourselves, which is going to be more efficient, not only for us, but also for your staff too.
Good. Any other questions for Ms. Laughlin? Okay, well, I think we have an action here to receive and file the report. So I'll entertain a motion to receive and file the report.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Hamburg,
I'm going to make a motion to accept and receive and file the 2023 audit for the city of Bel Aire prepared by AGH.
A second.
I have a motion by Ms. Hamburg, a second by Mr. Welch. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. We appreciate your input and help
Thank you.
with that. All right, next item on the agenda is citizens' concerns, and I have no request for citizen concerns. If there is anyone here who would like to speak to council, a citizen, certainly welcome to at this time. And seeing none, I'll move on to the council member reports. So Mr. Dean, do you have a report?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I do. I have a few things. Bear with me here. My first update is KDOT hosted several public open houses for the K254 corridor management plan last week. I was able to attend the meeting in Keachai on Wednesday night. There was a good turnout. The main update to share there is KDOT took the feedback received at previous public meetings to make some tweaks to their recommendations on both the short and long-term improvements along K254 highway. Just to summarize, short-term improvements are things such as lighting, making longer acceleration, deceleration lanes, R-cuts, and there's a couple other recommendations, but that's sort of a good summary of the short term. And then the longer term could include things such as overpasses, interchanges, and other road improvements. The major change that was made that a lot of folks gave feedback on the long-term improvements that would also have an impact to Bel Aire was the addition of a frontage service road on the south side of Highway K254 between the proposed Greenwich Road interchange extending east to the proposed Adams Road interchange, which is just west of Towanda. This is a significant change and is a great benefit for Bel Aire and all the communities on 254, and also a great benefit for local and freight traffic, other traffic that would be coming down the highway. Obviously, this isn't guaranteed, but this is a significant addition to the plan, which will be worked over the next 15, 20, 30 years. So it's hard to put a timeline on it, but I think everybody knows how that works with funding. But anyway, that's my summary of that meeting. And then a couple other quick things. There was a Bel Aire Walk event this Saturday. It's at Eagle Lake Park. They'll be meeting in the parking lot at 9 a.m. There's a Bel Aire Chamber meeting tomorrow at 11:30. And I I wanted to thank the Bel Aire rec staff for both the pool this summer as well as the summer camp that wrapped up. So I really appreciate all that Bel Aire rec does to support folks in our community. That's all I have. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. David.
Mr. Mayor, I did attend the CCUA meeting on the 25th of July. We had one exceedance of the effluent due to really a heavy rainstorm. Other than that, it functioned very well. I want to give a shout out to the big event that happened. There was the signing of the cost of service agreement, and all the people that Justin Smith, Mayor Benage, those went before him, and Ted and Ty, the administration, and court, our attorney, who did a lot of groundwork getting that going. I'll just add one other point that despite what the Bel Aire Breeze stated, which was a little bit of a one-sided story, Bel Aire has always wanted to move forward with that and was just waiting for the financial equity agreement to come into place, and that happened. So it's good news for both cities. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schmidt.
Mr. Mayor, yes, I was attending the chamber mixer, so I thought that went well.
Good.
And also I was participated with Councilman Den in relation to the engineering firm for the utilities and public works facility. And we're going to talk about that later.
Great.
So
Good. Thank you. Mr. Welch.
I have no report.
Ms. Hamburg.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended the park cleanup with the tree board on July 27th at Bel Aire Park. So our next one is going to be at Eagle Lake on August 31st from 9 to 10. So anybody is welcome. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, so now if I can find it, I got the mayor's report due, and bear with me, it's a little bit long. I've been out for a month, so anyway, so on July 16th, I attended the WAMPO Policy Board meeting, and we saw an update of the population projections being put together by the CBDR. This looks like a better model, but it does show slower population growth for Bel Aire than the Census Bureau's latest projections from 2023. So CBDR said they did not use the Census Bureau's projections as they do not understand its methodology. They do use the Census Bureau actual census data from 2020 as a baseline, but they didn't use the 2023 update. So the next census will be in 2030, so every 10 years as mandated by the Constitution. On July 11th, I attended the REAP meeting. We were presented with an overview of the database, which Workforce Alliance subscribes. This has a lot of demographic information about the region. Bel Aire can access this database for specific Bel Aire information. And I have provided that information to our city manager for review as a resource because there's a lot of valuable information, no sense in duplicating that effort. REAP also heard from the Kansas Community Empowerment Program. This was formerly known as the Kansas Pride. This is part of the KSU Extension Service and offers communities opportunity for volunteer support in terms of resources and grants. This might be useful for funding parks and other community projects we might wish to pursue. On July 13th, I attended the Sedgwick County Association of Cities meeting at Tanganyika Wildlife Park. So we appointed a person from Goddard to be the second-class cities representative on the Emergency Communication Community Advisory Board. We also learned that the hazard emergency mitigation plan has been approved by FEMA. So there may be some local adaptations that we need to have to do. Sedgwick County Emergency Management will contact us if that is needed. The Greater Wichita Partnership gave a presentation on the growth in the region. And they are showing for every dollar invested in partnership, there has been a return of 166 times. Also, every dollar invested in partnership has helped drive annual payroll of to the tune of about $32 per dollar invested. In the region, regional businesses have invested about $3.36 billion since 2015. So there's another 760 million in the pipeline, and so the region continues to boom. On July 25th, I also attended CCA board meeting. This is the meeting we approved the vote on 5-1, the cost of service agreement that Councilmember David spoke about between Bel Aire and CCUA, and the one between Park City and CCUA. Our representative cities passed these agreements 5-0 at Bel Aire and 5-1 for Park City. These agreements are a major win for the common good of the people of Bel Aire and Park City. I can't emphasize that enough. It puts in place a fair and equitable cost formula to fully recognize the usage of the CCUA facility from both cities. It fully prorates the cost of operations, maintenance, and infrastructure according to the amount of usage of each city, and this eliminates an imbalance where the infrastructure cost was allocated based upon a fixed percentage. Now, if one city grows faster than the other, that city will pay a higher percentage of the infrastructure cost. The second thing this agreement does is establish better measurement and monitoring of flows. Currently, wastewater from Bel Aire is measured at the location on 53rd Street near Interstate 135 for volume. The CCUA measures the total volume received at CCUA headworks. And then Park City's volume is calculated as the difference between the measure at the headworks minus the 53rd Street measurement. So next year, we will start to measure the volume and strength of the wastewater in Bel Aire at the Hardage lift station and the 53rd Street lift station between Oliver and Woodlawn. There are 3 lift stations in Park City where meters will be installed to measure volume. In addition to these meters to measure volume, samples will be taken at each lift station, 5 in total, to measure the strength of the wastewater for BOD and TSS. If these strengths are high, then there will be a charge to that city with a higher strength. This is to encourage each city to work diligently to keep the wastewater discharge within acceptable treatable limits. I compare this to a washing machine. If we dump a cup of mud in with the laundry, we cannot expect our clothes to come out clean. If we dump excessive strength sewage in the CCUA plant, we cannot expect it to keep the water it discharges to Chisholm Creek to be within limits established by KDHE. This is a phased-in plan. It will not have any immediate result on water or sewer bills. However, we can expect that our bills in Bel Aire may not increase as rapidly as some in the surrounding communities. There is a serious statewide water shortage, so it is going to get more expensive for everyone. This agreement should temper some of that increase so that in a few years, our bills will be on the same level as surrounding communities. This has been a multi-year effort. In 2021, we stopped the expansion of the wastewater treatment facility at CCUA due to the imbalanced allocation of cost. That caused a lot of anxiety between Park City and Bel Aire, but we simply could not, in good conscience, continue to build more infrastructure with such an imbalance of cost allocation. This is not fair to the citizens, and it's not the best solution for the common good. And if you don't believe in miracles, you need to take a look at how we were able to secure this agreement. This was truly the work of God. I know many people pray for the city council and myself, and I am grateful for those prayers. As most of you know, I too strive to be a faithful person in prayer. I believe it is the night of May 3rd, 2023, I was in my hotel in Atlanta, Georgia, doing my nightly prayers, and this issue was on my list. I know that night God promised me that he would take care of this. So while I needed to do my part, I also needed to trust that he would bring it together. The cities were a stalemate. CCUA had some significant issues with wastewater treatment in 2022. We were not meeting KDHE measurements. Late in 2022, KDHE issued a consent order, and we agreed to an expansion project, but the details of that project were not outlined in that order, only that we would submit a plan. Then in February 2023, Integra announced that they were coming to Bel Aire, and if they could secure the adequate CHIPS funding from the federal government, Integra project needed 1 million gallons of water per day, a game changer for CCUA and Bel Aire. In addition, there were significant differences in interpretation of the consent order wording expansion project. Does that mean expanded capacity or capability? Does it need to handle more volume or just better treat its current volume? Excuse me. Concurrent to these issues, Bel Aire had already contracted with Burns & McDonnell, an engineering firm, to audit the CCUA facility and make recommendations for improvement. They completed that audit in February 2023. Armed with that report, I attempted to work with Park City's mayor to see if we could hammer out an agreement. That effort stalled and Park City refused to consider water as part of the new agreement. They only wanted to talk about wastewater. So another stalemate. And it was at that time, May of 2023, that I was given the assurance that God was going to take care of this. In the months to ensure we continued in a stalemate, KDHE gave us an extension of a proposed project from May 2023 to November 2023, but there was no movement. In October 2023, I proposed CCA engage with Wilson and Company, an engineering firm that designed the expansion project, to design a project plan that would address the ability of the facility to treat the strength of the wastewater, not increase its volume. That proposal was not acceptable to the CCA board. So in November 2023, I sent a letter to KDHE requesting clarification on the consent order and appropriate interpretation. KDHE responded to my letter stating that there was no requirement to increase capacity, only the discharge within acceptable limits. That letter changed the position of many people. In December 2023, our city attorneys entered into negotiations. That was a long 7-month process. We spent many hours discussing terms and concepts, and in the end, we have a product that looks to be the best common good for the long term. So I want to thank especially to you, Maria, because you did the lion's share of the work in these negotiations. And I also know that you took a lot of heat for the various proposals, but you stayed with it to the end. And I thank Park City's attorney, Doug Mosier, for not giving up on this process. I also want to thank Kevin Cowan, the law firm Gilmore & Bell. This agreement had to fit within the covenants of the bonds and that they are still being paid. Kevin did the research and drafted these agreements based upon inputs from Maria and Doug. And thank you to the city councils of both Park City and Bel Aire. Well, we came to a very different perspective, from very different perspectives. At the end of the day, we both saw that we needed to do something that was fair to everyone. I thank Tony Keens, CCA utility manager, for providing feedback and input in various concepts. And thanks to the key players at Burns and McDonnell, especially Brian Meyer, Becky Lewis, and Dave Nauman. Without their technical guidance, we would not have been able to develop a solid workable solution. In 1 Corinthians 3:6, the Apostle Paul says, I planted, Apollos watered, but God was causing the growth. Of course, the Apostle Paul was talking about growing Christianity. But that scripture also applies here. Every player was planting and watering, but God was the one who was bringing this together as he promised he would do back in May of 2023. So I thank God for this win, for the citizens, and the common good. Please keep our firefighter Ty Voth, Wichita Fire, in prayers for his family. Mr. Voth died while fighting a fire in Hayesville this last week, and I think everybody heard that on the news. I know everyone is aware of the stage 2 water restrictions. Please help your neighbors who may not be aware that the watering on the wrong days. We need a community effort to help preserve our water resource until such time God decides to provide us with the rain in the Cheney watershed. I've often said over the last few years of the drought to pray for rain. We need to continue to pray for rain. In His infinite wisdom, God will provide what we need. So I will now ask our city attorney for her report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to give a brief report about the League of Kansas Municipalities. They put out some materials, specifically the standard traffic ordinance for Kansas cities. The city of Bel Aire has incorporated previous editions of the STO. We will go ahead and update our ordinance to incorporate this brand new edition. We will bring that to the governing body's attention at a workshop coming up most likely in September. Likewise, the League of Kansas Municipalities also prepares and publishes the Uniform Public Offense Code. It is basically a compilation of approximately 100 public offenses. Currently, the city of Bel Aire has incorporated previous editions of that specific code. So now that there is a new edition out, it would be best to incorporate that as well. Again, that will be brought to the governing body for you to discuss further, probably in September at a workshop. I'd like to bring your attention to those two items because those are very efficient, economical ways for cities in Kansas to incorporate and regulate traffic codes, criminal codes. And the Bel Aire Code, the traffic is under our Chapter 12. And then as far as the Uniform Public Code, that is under our Chapter 6. I just wanted to give a brief update to council and let you know that that discussion will be coming further in September.
Good, thank you. And I'll ask the city manager for his report.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. As you know, the city of Wichita, or the city of Bel Aire, receives its water from the city of Wichita and Chisholm Creek Utility Authority, and we're governed through a contract by their restrictions of our suppliers. Just wanted to touch base on a little bit of what has transpired since Monday. Cheney Basin is, or Cheney Reserve, or the Cheney Lake is down to 62%. So Wichita triggered their stage 2 drought response on Monday, which makes us do that. This will limit lawn and landscape irrigation to once per week. It starts each day starts at from 8 p.m. and ends at 10 a.m. the next day. The goal is to reduce water by 10%, and after 2 months, the city of Wichita will reevaluate where we're at. I think the most important theme of this is, we're not alone in this. There's Derby, Valley Center, Parks, Rose Hill, Park City, Keachai, Bentley, Benton, and rural water districts that also have to comply with these. As you know, through communication and education, we separated the city on days. I know there's a little confusion of when that day starts, but we hopefully blasted it every way we can. On Monday, it starts at 9 p.m. If you're red on Monday, it starts at 9 p.m. and ends at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, and so forth and so on as you go through the days. We asked that residents work on outdoor, limiting their outdoor watering, please use rain barrels, and household water use limitations encouraged. Residents using private wells, which there's not many in Bel Aire, but I believe there's a few, are encouraged to post a sign and decrease their use as well. Refilling of swimming pools is allowed once a week at your designated irrigation day. Please, waste of water is prohibited. I know, people like running out in the sprinklers. Let's try not to do any of those types of things. These are straight from Wichita. The exemptions for them is businesses that generate their core economic activity from outdoor water, or from outdoor water, include car washes, nurseries, sod suppliers, etc. They'll be exempt. Again, we're under the same restrictions as everyone else. I think the main focus for staff right now is communication with our residents, education. I think education and communication is the most important part of this type of policy, because not everybody gets their communication on social media. So we're really trying. We have stacks of what to do printed downstairs. Our code enforcement officer has stacks in his truck. I've talked to several HOAs over the last few days. The problem sometimes with that 14-hour window is when you have 52 zones hooked up to the same system, you're going to need a little leeway. And I've assured them, as long as you're just watering once a week, we'll understand and we'll note it. So a lot of the education goes, if you see something going on, you can call the office and we can explain what's going on. But not everybody's out to sideswipe these regulations. Sometimes it's just the situation of the irrigation system is there. We've updated our phone lines that if you call in the city hall and want to learn more, you'll have a recording on there, as well as an opportunity to talk to someone in our office. So this next week or so, we're primarily focused on communication and education. Enforcement is another issue that comes down from Wichita through our agreement. We're going to discuss more of that in a week, next Tuesday, because we'll have to look at updating some of our water conservation policy. But those types of enforcements always include a warning, and that's how we'll proceed from here on out. But like the mayor said, let's hope for some rain, and let's do our part in the community to conserve our water. Thank you.
Ted, I did have one question clarification. So there has been a lot of communications from citizens. The city is following these same guidelines.
Correct.
The city is going to water once a week, just like
Correct.
everybody else is.
Correct.
Just wanted to get that out there so the public understands the city is following what they're preaching, so to speak. And
Correct.
just wanted to make sure that was
Correct.
said.
Some of these sprinklers on the roundabouts, if you might have noticed that, we've gotten those fixed. We thought we had them right, and they went off on Monday, and we turned them off, and we got a lot of citizens asking about that as well. But thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr.
is
Smith?
there anything that we can do with the CCUA to draw more water from our wells to help out the city of Wichita or not?
I can talk to Tony, but I'm pretty sure we run pretty full capacity during the summer months.
We're filling in above the
Yeah.
winter baseline. Is that what happens?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure, and I'll confirm with Tony, but all hands on deck usually on the summertime because of all this watering going on, meaning we need to take some from Wichita, even if CCUA provides as much as they can to us the way our pipes are ran.
All right.
So that's kind of the problem we have. If we didn't need Wichita, we probably wouldn't have a contract with them. But during these summer months, we do to irrigate our irrigation and provide water for our city.
Okay, thanks.
There have been times when CCUA's had to run pretty much constant to keep the towers filled, both Park City and Bel Aire towers.
During the summer?
In the summertime, yeah.
Okay.
During the peak usage times.
Okay,
There are some
great.
times they struggle keeping those towers filled.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Was there anything else in your manager report?
I think that's enough for tonight.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right. We'll move on to ordinance and resolutions and final actions. So the first item is ordinance changing zoning in a certain area along 53rd Street. So at their July meeting, the Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on rezoning of property approximately 80 acres located in the north side of frontage of East 53rd Street between Oliver and Woodlawn. The applicant proposed rezoning from R4 to AG agriculture to permit construction of a non-commercial horse riding barn and stable. After deliberations, the commission voted 4-0 to recommend approval of the rezoning. The request now considered by the city council. So staff and applicant Kirby Smith, okay, they're here to stand for questions. And we weren't sure you were going to be here, but we're glad you're here. So thank you. So if anyone has any questions for staff or Mr. Smith about this zoning change. And yeah, please come to the podium and speak in the microphone if you want to talk.
I want to thank your Planning and Zoning Commission because they were really helpful in helping me walk through this process and understood. And so my grandkids can ride horses. So
yeah, well, that's cool.
Okay.
I was reading someplace it's 140. You could have as many as 144 horses. I hope you're not going to do that.
No. Four.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
140
gonna be
short.
Yeah,
So,
that's gonna be a lot of
okay.
horses.
And thank you. What a pleasure tonight. This is an excellent run meeting. So I'm glad to
Thank you.
have listened. Thank you.
All right.
Well, I've got a question for you if nobody else does. Why are we doing the whole 80 acres instead of just 5 or 10? I mean, that's prime development space. It's got all utilities to it. It's ready to go. The stuff south has been developed.
Well, I can tell you as long as I own it, it'll be ag ground. It was purchased as ag ground. It's taxed as ag ground. It's zoned in Sedgwick County as ag. And if you guys drive by it, there's 280 round bales on it. We cut brome seed off of it. It's fenced for ag. And the planning commissioners all drove by and looked and said, this is ag, which is also the same. Right now, my taxes on that 80, which I got to tell you, we moved here from Nebraska to be close to our grandkids. Okay. We bought that 80 and the 30 acres that adjoins it, which is in Keachai, where the residence is. The taxes on that 80 is $148 a year. Phenomenal. They treat ag ground wonderful. You guys receive $46 a year off that 80. Okay. Let me build a barn. You can tax the barn. So that's what I can offer to you.
Okay, so since you also own the 30 acres, why aren't you putting the barn on the 30 acres?
Doesn't lay well for that facility. Your water runs through it, if you want to know the truth. So
Okay.
we have a pond that it collects, et cetera. But there's not a flat spot on the 30 to put a barn.
You can make flat spots.
Just,
That's a problem.
you know, this is more conducive, et cetera. But again, your Planning and Zoning Commission recommended just rezoning the 80. If at some time in the future somebody wants to develop it, that won't be me, you know, then I'm sure it would be real easy to rezone it back to RR or SF5 for larger acreage homes, that kind of deal. I always get confused. My profession is I feed cattle. I'm a feedlot nutritionist and feed cattle. Okay, so dealing with planning and zoning and laws is not my forte. When a little over a year ago, there was a gentleman in the planning and zoning office, Jay, came to him, showed him what we wanted to do, and he said, oh, you know, what we need to do is rezone this to RR, then give you a conditional applicant. What Bel Aire would really like is larger, better houses, okay? Evidently, he left, okay? And so I brought the plan to Keith, thank you, and he said, no, it's SF4, no. And I was like, what can I do? Can't build anything there. It's single family only. I was like, son of a gun, you know, if I'd have known that, we wouldn't be here. Okay, we bought the 80 and the 30 together, and it was a conditional purchase. Okay, so the city manager from Keachai, I met with her to ask her what I could do, and she told me her husband had retired as planning and zoning with Keachai, and so he reviewed it all, met with Keith, and went through the recommendations of just how to change zoning. Okay, that's how I got here where I'm at, and I guess that's up to you, but Planning and Zoning Commission said, let's zone it all to ag.
Okay, so next question. What's the limit on the number of animals you can have on this space? Somebody said 100 and something.
I don't think
What are
that's
the
right. I
neighbors
just
going to
read
do
something.
when you put that many animals out there? And I know
Every
you're
neighbor
going to tell
wrote
me
a
you're
letter
not
to
going
the Planning
to.
and Zoning Commission, said they would like this. Every neighbor on the south, on the north side of 53rd wrote to the Planning and Zoning Commission, said we would like this zone back to ag. That's the use of it.
Well,
What are the restrictions? I have read it 1,000 times. Again, not my forte. If you want me to put a 5,000 head feed yard there, I'd be glad to. I own several of them, but that's not
Oh,
my
thank you.
plan.
This,
Yeah, my plan
this
is
is
to have.
kind of the inverse of the other situations I see where a farmer's out there and he's been doing something for 100 years and people build across the street and then complain about him. This one is we're building the farm after the people.
It's been a farm. It's been a
Well,
farm
it's
for
been
80 years.
grass.
Yeah,
And it
it's
was
grass.
tilled at one point.
And on the
but
very
it's-
north side, I was going to put this 100 by 120 horse barn to ride indoors, which is an interesting fact. In Nebraska, you build them so you can ride in the winter. As we've all experienced the last week, you build them now so you can stay cool in the summer. But yeah, that I am enjoying it being warmer in the winter. Let me put it that way. So, but it is truly a project so that my kids who live at 45th and County Line Road, so they're Wichita residents, et cetera. So my 3 grandsons can come and ride with us. I gave pictures to the Planning and Zoning Commission what we did. We ride cutting horses, and my son and my daughter-in-law and myself have been very competitive over the years, and it's just an opportunity I want to give my grandkids. So.
Any other questions for Mr. Smith?
I
Mr.
appreciate
Mayor.
your consideration. Thank you.
Mr. David?
So just to pull on that thread one a little bit further, then there, if we change this to ag, there's nothing preventing you from putting a feedlot there.
No, sir.
Is that,
Yeah,
that-
no, sir.
okay? I want
No,
to make
this
sure
is-
that's not what I heard.
Well, I said
I
if
mean,
you want
other
me
than-
to, I will, but no, I do not
I know you
don't-
don't plan to, but
Yeah.
the rezoning, is there anything that prevents it once it's zoned there?
I don't know. Evidently, the planning and zoning didn't see any issues. I think there is limits on livestock. Okay. But if you go east on 53rd, which you can't right now, sorry. Another note for you. So you're redoing 53rd Street between Oliver and Woodlawn. Okay. Every access on that road is concrete except mine. You guys are treating it as ag and putting it in as asphalt. Okay. So everybody else has concrete access. I'm getting asphalt. So you guys are treating it as ag ground too. But if you go east on 53rd Street between Rock and Webb to the north side, lots of livestock. That gentleman has a little feedlot back there, runs them on the deal. Not my intent.
I can't place a feedlot there.
Yeah, on the west side of Oliver, there's some cow stuff. No, if you go east on 53rd between Rock and Webb, there's,
Well, there's a school and there's a big open field, and that open field's being developed to
maybe it's
housing.
between Webb
It
and
used to have
Greenwich.
cattle in there. There used to be cattle in there.
Yeah, but
I don't think
being
there is.
Trust me,
developed
I'm
now,
still having
so-
to use my GPS to get around here, so.
Yeah, you are right. There were cattle there. That property is now being developed into houses.
Okay.
But you're right. There were cattle. There's also and I don't know if it's still active or not. There was a riding facility there on 53rd, the north side between Woodlawn and Rock Road. But I think it's still there, but I don't know. I've never seen anybody using it.
It looks like it's in disrepair.
Yeah.
Woodlawn and Rock.
I'm sorry?
I'm trying to think, so, never mind. Yeah, I'm not sure where that is.
Sorry.
In the ordinances, though, it does say, when you zone it to ag, this can't be a commercial riding academy or stables, like boarding stables. So there are some limits on it. And the city engineer, is that who?
She's right there.
Oh, hey.
Yes.
The very first meeting when we proposed this, she asked me if I wanted it ag or commercial, if I was going to have events there. And she said, if you want events, we need to do it commercial. And I said, no, ma'am, I don't. This is truly, I don't want 1,000 people back there. Okay. Yeah.
You just want it for your family.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Smith?
Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Hamburg?
So just wanted to confirm with Ms. Schrock, that was my concern, is that if something changed in his situation, which it sounds like it won't, but with zoning, it's future owners as well, anything they wanted to do commercial would have to be through like a PUD or something like that, or move up to another level. We're not at high risk moving this back to ag. Is that correct?
Well, I'm looking at the code right now for agriculture. Mr. Kirby is right. There are certain things that are allowed per that specific district classification: crops, livestock.
Is your microphone on?
Yes, livestock, animal specialties, agricultural services. Now, it does go into detail in the code regarding development and performance standards for agricultural developments. For example, there shall be no restrictions as to operation of agricultural vehicles. All buildings, structures, or yards used for the raising, feeding, housing, or sale of livestock shall be located at least 100 feet from residentially located land. So those are all per ordinance. Those are all allowed to zoned land agricultural. Now, when the Planning Commission makes a decision, they're looking at the land specifically. There is no promise or assurance as to what will be done with that land, but that's for agricultural. But Councilmember Hamburg, you had asked about another classification as well.
Yeah, I mean, just the sort of the joke about the feedlot and that sort of thing. That's not covered under this general ag, correct?
That is under
That is.
agriculture. Now, I think where the comment from Mr. Kirby about commercial was if he was wanting to do lessons or some type of exhibition or contests, then that would be something different.
Correct. Yeah, that's how you explained it to me. Basically, if you were going to, trust me, my horse addiction is not profitable. Okay. So, this isn't a for-profit.
So would a feedlot fall under commercial?
No, it's agriculture.
I'm sorry, it just went down.
I can tell you, you can't put a feedlot there. And it's a
Maria,
really important reason why. There is no water.
Oh,
Maria, in our packet, it specifically references Sedgwick County Animal Code. Do you want me to read that? Because that's kind of what limits what can be on there. Is referred to once before. So Sedgwick County Animal Code 18.2.1 of the zoning code indicates, according to the county code, 79 acres could have up to 344 horses or livestock before being reduced based on setbacks. 40 acres with a 100-foot setback from residential zone property for horses in Bel Aire would be approximately 144 maximum number. So that's where you got the 144 horse number. So I think that's sort of what they would have to follow based on Sedgwick County Animal Code.
Councilor Miller, yeah, and you'll have to read also the paragraph Keith wrote on page 4 because they're in conflict with each other. The Bel Aire Animal Control Services as well. So there's a setback between houses as well. That would, Keith's trying to say it's conflicting with it. Bel Aire's nuisance code. And so I think there's some protections in there, but it was a limited concern of Keith's that kind of the staff recommendation of the front 40B remain zone R4 and the back 40 be rezoned as ag was our compromise as a staff. Now the planning commission decided they would prefer it. All 80 would be ag.
The setback referred to in Bel Aire zoning code 18.7 C56, 100-foot setback from the land for all activities and 300-foot related to debris and products generated or bought that may cause odors or health concerns is what's specifically noted.
Mr. Smith, can you go further with that water issue? How would you get water if somebody after you
So
wanted
horses
to?
drink about 12 gallons of water a day. So
But if someone after you wanted to put in a feedlot, would they have to go through the city to get water?
I would assume so. You couldn't afford it. Cattle drink this time of year about 15 gallons a day. So if you put in let's say 1,000 head feed yard, you're going to use 15,000 gallons a day at $7 plus the penalties. You couldn't afford to have livestock. Water is the number one nutrient for livestock and for all of us. Okay. So there's no water there, which is a surprise to me coming from Nebraska because you dug a post hole and you got water. And
you do that here.
no, sir.
Some
We tried
places,
to
yes,
get
it's-
2 irrigation wells so we could water our yard. We dug 2 holes and got 2 gallons a minute. So we now have buffalo grass. So I'm only having to mow once a month. I'm enjoying that, but yeah, my
Maria,
wife's not.
Maria, can you provide clarification? Because when I'm reading, it doesn't seem like he can have a big old feed yard. I mean, there's pretty specific language that restricts the numbers.
When it went to the planning commission, there was a very detailed staff report that listed what was going to be allowed per the classification of agriculture. It included the crops, the livestock, animal specialties. And then what I do appreciate about this staff report is staff went into detail about Sedgwick County Code and Bel Aire Code. Depending upon the number of acres, depending upon the setbacks, there would be the limit to the maximum of the 144. As far as anything else regarding a specific feed lot, I guess that would depend upon what your version or what you're imagining. But for here, there's a specific limit as to the number. There is a specific information about setbacks. I'm also reading in the staff report that for the specific 30 acres, I believe Mr. Kirby was talking about that. The request on the 30 acres would support a barn and a stable. It went into detail as to where the barn could be that's going to be built. And I think that was on the northern.
Oh, it's on the very
section.
north side. So we're at the very end of that access. So there's 80 acres or Mr. Brian McNeil, Bob and Mindy Gleason. I'm sorry. Bob and Mindy Gleason, and then ourselves on that 80. Front 40 is Brian McNeil. There's 10 acres that's Bob Gleason. There's 30 that's mine. We're the very north end of it. We have a house and, oh, that's it? Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, these pictures are old. So that's all the water runs to us now. Okay. And where these trees are is our house. We built a shop there, and I want to put a horse barn right back there. Have to jump.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Hamburg.
one last question for Ms. Schrock regarding the business license. I know that says that's a gray area in our packet, but I'm assuming there will be requirements in the business license, if that ever came to be, that would have questions about smell and setbacks as well outside of the zoning code, correct?
That's correct. That goes in front of the planning commission as well. They would ask questions. I'm going to look at that. They would ask questions about the nature of the business, the location of the business, the square feet, setbacks, the total number of employees. All of that information, a plan, a diagram is all requested by the planning commission to be provided to them if it was to turn towards more of a business commercial route. There's even a submission of the application where others can review it, ask questions. Of course, there would be a notification for a public hearing where others could come forward and ask questions.
So when making this motion, do we need to distinguish if we want to do the half recommended by staff or the full 80? Am I understanding that issue correctly?
The way the ordinance is written right now, let me pull that up. It is written as the full 80. That is what the planning commission ultimately recommended for approval to the city council.
So as a matter of order, the only option we can take here is either approve it or send it back to the planning commission.
That's correct.
We can't modify it.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Hamburg.
just based on our discussion, I'm satisfied enough. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to adopt an ordinance changing the zoning district of certain lands located in the city of Bel Aire, Kansas, under the authority granted by the zoning regulations of the city, ZON 2401, and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Hamburg, a second by Mr. Dean. This is a roll call vote, so I'll ask the city clerk, please call the roll.
I want to throw out one more comment before we
Certainly,
vote.
that's fine.
We put in water and sewer along that 53rd at expense to the city. And at the time we did that, we assumed that was going to be residential and that would help pay for that water and sewer. And now we're cutting ourselves off at the knees if we do this.
I don't recall that, but I'm not going to dispute it either. I just don't
We've
remember.
looked at all the zoning around everything when we've made decisions about what to do. We knew it wasn't going to be immediate, but we assumed it was going to be sometime in the near future. Well, with everything being developed south of 53rd.
I do know that our main water line comes through there, right? That is correct, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we have water and
Yeah.
sewer mains right down 53rd.
Yeah, we just upgraded some of that.
those remains. They're paid by the city at large.
I think you're thinking of the lift station on Oliver, but yeah.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
But all of that goes into how's it going to get paid for? How do we justify the need for it?
Good question. I don't have the answer, unfortunately. I don't know.
I feel like there's a lot of development occurring along 53rd that's going to help pay for it. Not all the land's going to develop the same.
No, that's true.
Doesn't mean it won't develop sometime in the future. They're just asking for a change.
Well, it's written off at least for his lifetime, it sounds like. So, and I hope that's more than a
But
couple
the good
of
and bad
years.
news is that I'm 63, soon to be 64, which is
So you've got
wonderful.
at least 30 years probably.
We won't be able to
Care for it.
maintain that property, care for that and all that for the next 30 years. So somebody probably will buy that for development, et cetera. But yeah, if I can get to 75, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah, like you said, John, we don't typically have this issue. It's always in reverse, and I expect we're going to reverse it, before we know it, with no guarantees. But I'm happy with his plan, and the ability to use his property as he sees fit.
Is there any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. D?
I really
David.
hate to go against the planning commission, and I even hate more to deny kids their horses, but I just feel like they could have had a little different solution here that would have solved both. So that's why I can't support it.
Any other discussion before we go to a vote? This is a roll call vote, so I'll ask the city clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Greg David?
Nay.
Mr. Tyler Dean?
Aye.
Ms. Emily Hamburg?
Aye.
Mr. Tom Schmitz?
Aye.
Mr. John Welch?
Nay.
And Mayor Jim Minaj?
Aye.
And the motion carries 4-2, Mayor.
Thank you. So that motion passes on a vote of 4-2 as an ordinance.
I thank you all for your consideration. I appreciate it. I'll try and be a good neighbor.
Okay, we appreciate that. Thank you. Move on to item B. So this is another planning commission, her request for a planned unit development in July. And the applicant is proposing a final PUD for office warehouse use in an M1 industrial zone district as part of Sunflower Commerce Park 4th. At the public hearing during the July meeting, playing with lights.
Ted's trying to get the one on the, there you got it.
The planning commission heard from the applicant and no one else spoke. So following the hearing, the planning commission voted 4-0 to approve the final PUD as presented. The PUD now comes before the city council for consideration, and staff and Kurt Hershey with Tesserae. Am I saying that correctly? Tesserae is here to answer questions. So Mr. Hershey. So this is the warehousing area, project, right? Okay,
Yes.
very good.
That's the best one I could find. Oh, good. Pretty close.
So is there any questions or discussion for Mr. Hershey on this project? If not, I'll entertain a motion for it.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. David.
I'll make a motion to adopt the ordinance for changing the zoning district of certain lands located in the city of Bel Aire, Kansas, under the authority granted by the zoning regulations of the city, Sunflower Commerce Park 4th PUD 24-01, and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. David, a second by Mr. Dean. Any discussion? Hearing none, this is another roll call vote, so please ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Mr. Greg David,
Aye.
Mr. Tyler Dean,
Aye.
Ms. Emily Hamburg,
Aye.
Mr. Tom Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. John Welch,
Aye.
and Mayor Jim Benaj.
Aye.
And the motion carries 6-0, Mayor.
Thank you. Move on to the next item. So this is the same, is this the same property? So the committee, the planning commission also in their July meeting considered the final plat of Sunflower Commerce Park 4th edition. The following discussion. Following the discussion, the commission voted 4-0 to approve the final plat and plat now here for acceptance. Dedicated of streets, dedication of streets, public easements, and other public ways, and presented in the plat. So the plat, I think, is up on the board and in the packet. Any questions or discussion about this plating?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Dean?
I did have one question for Ann. Webb Road, as you all know, is a fairly well-traveled corridor, especially with freight traffic, and I know Sunflower Park's right there. Do you have any concerns with both of those drives being off of Webb and the distance between them? Just looking at the plat, it kind of struck me as a potential concern. It is a 4-lane road, but that sort of came up because we don't have a stop sign currently. There's not a 4-way stop at 53rd and Webb.
Sure. At this point, especially with the beginning stages of the development, phase 1 will be, I believe, 2 buildings, 2 or 3, just the lot 1, block 1, and then lot 1, block 2. It'll be fairly minimal traffic. As we get going further, then we will definitely be reevaluating the situation. I will work with Kurt and Tesserae. The shoulders of Webb Road have proved to be insufficient for maintaining construction traffic and construction traffic staging. So that may be something that we work through as we're starting this project.
You'd anticipate that freight, as it increases using that shoulder to pull off, will start causing some issues potentially.
I'm thinking just during the construction process itself. We have run into that with Rock Spring 4th subdivision, and then I believe the Skyview subdivision as well.
So we'll keep evaluating both the shoulders, but also the potential of studying traffic light or some other control measure if we need.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. The traffic is something that Kurt and I had talked about kind of in the beginning of the process. And he assured me that with phase 1 of the project, it'll be pretty minimal traffic, but as the phases continue, we probably will require a traffic study as this moves forward.
Totally makes sense. Thank you for confirming that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So just a clarification, which area are you starting first? Is the south side of this lot or the north side?
It would be the south side.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
There you go.
Down there. Okay. I can't read that. So yeah, I know you called the numbers out. I can't tell what.
No
numbers
worries.
are.
It's
Yeah,
be about 10 times bigger.
right.
It does look like there's a small access to 53, but most of the access is going to be off of Webb.
Correct.
All of the truck access will be off of Webb.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
And part of that was also looking down the road at the potential for the interchange.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, Mayor, with that, I'll move, we accept the dedications within the final plat for Sunflower Commerce Park 4th and authorize all required signatures.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Dean and a second by Mr. David. Any additional questions or discussion? Hearing none, I think we can just call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Move on to item D. So the city code requires development agreement to be filed with the final plat, and development agreement outlines developers' responsibilities before and after construction. And this agreement now comes before this council for approval. It's all related to the same properties, right? Any questions or discussion about the development agreement?
Well, the question I asked you earlier, why do we have an HOA?
Yeah, I don't like these. So,
I'm sorry.
I think there's a reference in the development agreement about an HOA. So can somebody help us understand that?
On page 5, under signage B, says the developer indefinitely maintains unless transferred to an HOA.
That language should just be association because
Yeah.
the current developer is planning on maintaining the entire property. And at some point in time, as they build out, if they sell off warehouses, they will formulate an association, which would then take over maintenance of reserve areas and common areas.
So just association or a commercial association, or what would we call that to be proper?
An association, I believe. I think it was just it was
Boilerplate, didn't get updated,
Copy
right?
something
through
over.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it says performed by the developer or homeowners association. So
Right.
developer could transfer their requirements to another developer or another. It's pretty standard language, it looks like to me.
Yeah, that was a bit of an oversight. In Sunflower Commerce Park, the original one, it was a business owners association.
Gotcha.
They're currently the ones that are doing the maintenance of all of the reserves. The city had transferred our development interests to that business owners association. So if the council wishes, we can change that wording to BOA or business owners association or just association.
Okay, so can we just make a handwrite change to that, or do we need to reprint this for approval, or?
I think we could
Approve with amendment.
approve it as amended, couldn't we?
You can approve it as amended, and then we can easily put that in type
Okay,
and
Very
then
good.
print that out.
okay.
Okay,
Good
then-
question.
I don't see anybody else piping up. I didn't want to overtalk them. I'll make a motion to accept the planned unit development agreement for Sunflower Commons Park Fourth as amended to change HOA to Business Owners Association wherever it occurs in the document and authorize all required signatures.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Welch, a second by Mr. David. Was that, did you, okay, I wasn't sure who said that, so
Right.
thank you. Okay, and this is a motion as amended. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Move on to item E. This is, now we're moving on to different things. Okay, so the city of Bel Aire has initiated the process to build a new utilities and public works facility within Sunflower Commerce Park. An RFQ was issued on June 24th for architectural and engineering services. Attached responses from 4 firms. After scoring the RFQ submissions, the top 2 firms were selected for interviews. The selection committee interviewed the 2 firms on July 30th and has recommended Schaefer Architecture for the project. Staff and ownership representative Kirk Jurgensen from PEC. Did I say your name right?
You did, sir.
Thank you. Good. I hate butchering names, but my name gets butchered all the time, so I'm sorry. I'm glad I got yours right, but okay. Then they're here to answer questions.
Yeah, so I know we're going at a quick pace, but we got to. So that's kind of where I'm at. We sent out RFQs for this type of service, like the mayor said, and back in June 24th. Received responses from 4 good architectural firms. We reviewed those responses. I established a selection committee. Councilmember Dean and Councilmember Schmitz joined us in evaluating the top 2. With that evaluation and question and answer, we chose Schaefer to one. Everyone was very professional and did a great job, but Schaefer just seemed to have a little bit more to them. Their timeline was better, and I think one of the best advantages of having a owner's rep in this process is the ability to utilize them who've been through a lot of these different projects and say, you got to get to know the person that is going to be on the day-to-day. And we think Schaefer's day-to-day person is going to be that right partner in our endeavor here the next year, this building and constructing. So I'm here to answer any questions you might have, as well as Kurt as well.
So we don't have a lot of experience with architecture because we haven't built a lot of buildings
No.
as a city. Do we have any experience with this company? References? What did we learn about this company?
This is the beauty of things.
Thanks, Dad. Actually, my background is 35 plus years of architectural experience here in Wichita as well. So I do know Schaefer. Yes, I
Okay.
know Tesserae as well, former employee of Tesserae. So yeah, we really looked through this and thought that choosing them was the right thing to do. The experience that they showed, and as I told Ted, who we're going to work with, really impressed the entire group, I believe.
Right. Well, that's why we have you to help us with this because
I'm going to try and do for you.
not my background anyway. So,
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Dean.
I wanted to make a few comments. First, I was really glad that we got 4 very qualified firms that proposed. We sent it to 7. We got 4. There's a lot of people pretty busy right now. So first off, I was impressed by the interest in the project. I also believe all those firms to be well qualified to do a job. I don't think we could have went wrong, but I think at the end of the day, it felt during our selection that Schaefer was the right partner to take maybe a fresh look at what we might do with our facility there. And I think that we did pick a good partner, and that's why I was excited to vote my confidence for them. So just wanted to say a few words, but I also wanted to thank all those firms. I know it takes time and energy to propose, and the ones that all proposed, and then the 2 that took the time to interview. So appreciate all their efforts and look forward to seeing them propose on future projects too.
You were on the committee also, Mr. Schmidt.
Right. I concur with the comments already made. And then just looking at the project in general, and then looking at, I went through all of the information provided by both companies, and it just seemed like they were just slightly better in a lot of different areas. And I just think it was a pretty, I think it's just the best decision to be made for our citizens and for this project.
Very good. Well, I appreciate both of you for taking time out to help with that process. It's always interesting to go through these. I haven't done an architectural one. I've done some others, and it does take some time. So I appreciate your doing that.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Hamburg.
I don't want to go too far off the range, but can you comment on the reference made to the construction manager at risk approach to this project? Have we done that? I don't think we've ever done that in Bel Aire before, have we?
You haven't, correct? Yeah. What's that? You haven't done? No. All right. The comment was we were trying to establish there's construction manager at risk, design build, design bid build. So we were just looking at alternatives that each of the firms have dealt with. Sometimes on a little bit more complicated projects, CMAR is advantageous. And on a smaller project, such as this one, and I'm not saying it's tiny, but a smaller, uncomplicated, it's not to your advantage typically to go that route. So we were just trying to get a feel for what each firm had experience in.
Okay, gotcha. But it's not likely we will do that in on this. Okay, thank you.
No, and this was put out as a design bid build, the normal. The issue here is it's federal, we have a grant process we're going through, so anything over $5,000 will come before you. So it's going to be a interesting, a lot of paperwork on my end, but so the design bid build is the preferred right now. We like to ask a lot of different questions in these interviews just to maybe throw some people off or see what they feel in projects.
Thank you.
Councilman Hamburg, that actually reminded me of something. So one of the major advantages, Schaefer was just more aggressive with their schedule, like to get this design and get it delivered. And I really appreciate that because they knew, all the teams knew we were kind of under the gun on this to get it going because we need to build it next year. And so I appreciate them for taking that aggressiveness to the schedule too. Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Dean.
If there's no further discussion, I'll move we accept the proposal from Schaefer and authorize staff to negotiate an agreement.
A second.
Motion from Mr. Dean, a second from Mr. Schmidt. Any additional questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item F. So at the July 16th City Council meeting, PEC was selected as the ownership representative for the new Utilities and Public Works facility. They're already doing some work tonight. So staff met with PEC shortly after to discuss the terms of the agreement. The agreement is now ready for consideration by City Council.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Dean.
This is another one I kind of followed up with staff and asked some questions. I just wanted Ted to speak a little bit for the public's benefit. There is a fee that they negotiated on this. And Ted, why don't you just speak to the negotiations that occurred and what resources you used to make sure that we're getting a fair agreement?
And that's kind of as you know, we haven't built a lot of public works facility, and especially under this pressure and under the timelines with the grants and different things. So when initially approaching this project, I needed help. Like I think all our staff needs a little bit. So this owner's rep is something that is really needed to get this project completed and on time and stay on schedule. They'll be out there every day and have resources. So what I do is I just go to the Construction Management Association of America. They have different tables that go through when you talk about range of fees for this type of work. Anything less than $1 million is between 5 and 15%. 1 million to 10 million, which is kind of our range, would be 5 to 9%, and over 10 million is 1 to 5%. So not to get too in depth with our conversations, but they start at a number, say 6, and I say, no, that's not going to do. So we ended at 4. So that's kind of how the negotiations went on this particular project. It is the complexity of it, maybe not the most complex as far as building goes, but I think all the elements around it and what PEC provides as far as the grant compliance and that type of environment, as well with OR, is going to be very beneficial for the city in this project.
All right, very good. Thank you.
What are we getting for the 6 million? Does that include the building, or is that only the design and overview?
No, that's yeah. So that's
Better be a
the
building there.
It doesn't really say.
So 4.7 is the grant, and the 25% match is 1.5. So that's what we're trying to shoot for, is around that amount of money that we're going to spend. So we're not going so far above, but I know there is some wiggle room in that because of the advantageous of getting a lot of this paid for, to improve the infrastructure and the economic viability of that area.
I guess I didn't understand your answer. What is the total for the project expected to be?
Right. That's what the architects will tell us exactly, but it'll be $7 million. $7 million is our.
So this
or
6,700,000 is our rough guess of what the whole project is.
That's our rough guess on the whole project.
Not what we're going to pay PEC.
Yeah. What we're going to pay PEC is 4%. Sorry.
They'll take it.
No.
Just want to make
Is
sure,
that your
because-
question? No, they wish. No way.
No,
Sorry, I didn't understand your question.
So the piece of this that Schaefer is, they're going to do the design work, and
Correct.
then they're going to bid it out to contractors to build it.
Correct.
Okay. So we don't have all those costs yet because you can't do the bid until you have the
So,
design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Ted, just to clarify, this is sort of a guess of what the fee would be applied to.
correct.
Right.
Well,
So maybe we should
fee
restate.
the fee would be hard, but the amount, the building costs could potentially go up. So
Or
that
maybe,
adds a
we
percentage.
restate the fee would not exceed, or I don't know how we reword this, but it is written kind of incorrectly the way it's written, I think.
Yeah, I'm still confused too. I don't know how to rewrite it either real quick.
It's the work order that PEC wrote up,
Yeah.
and that's what you're trying to say, but yeah.
4% on the
It doesn't say
total
what
cost of the project.
The number, or whatever. that
It's
is.
268, yeah.
No, we're approving the work order,
Correct.
and just PEC just happened to be the author of that work order.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are you happy with
No.
the way it is, Maria, or do you have a suggestion on how to word this a little more clearly? I don't think anybody's trying to screw us, but I just want to.
It almost feels like
Okay,
we need to
so-
refer to just
so
approving the
here's
master
just a
service agreement
suggestion
and take out
is-
the not to exceed, because that's a construction, that's a total cost that we're estimating at this point.
Well, you got to put the 4% in there. So the suggestion would be to just add the words in the amount not to exceed 4% of 6.7 million.
I can go with that. I understand that.
Well, I think the hard part is we're not sure what exactly the cost will be until it's designed.
Until
and
you get there. That's right.
Until we
So
get there.
We don't know.
Well, we could say not to exceed 4% of the total cost expected to be 6.7 million.
I think that's more agreeable language, because unless you want me to come back when we have an actual cost, but I believe what the way it's written is just fee will be calculated based on actual costs incurred in design and construction. So
And it defines actual cost, total of design and
Yeah.
construction.
yeah, that's the way I was reading it. But
Mr. Mayor,
Give it a go.
Mr. David.
try it. Motion to approve work order number 24-08 with PEC for owner representation, project management services for the city of Bel Aire, new public works facility project in the amount not to exceed 4% of the total cost expectation of 6.70476,704,710, and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second that.
A motion by Mr. David and a second by Mr. Welch. Any additional questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. And we're ready to move on to the next item, but I would like to ask for a 5-minute recess.
How long do we expect the session, the executive
I don't
session?
know, how long do you looking for executive session?
15 minutes start with.
To start with. That's a bad sign. Okay, I will make a motion to,
15.
I will make a motion to go into recess for 5 minutes. No,
No, recess.
Oh.
not-
Recess.
Not
I'll second.
executive session. So I have a motion by Mr. Welch and a second by Mr. Dean to go in recess for 5 minutes. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Recess for 5 minutes. Ready? We're all here.
Oh.
I think we're back.
All right. Okay. I'm going to call the meeting back to order, and we're ready for next item, this executive session. So whoever wants to make a motion, I'm not going to say whether 15 or 30, you guys take your
I'll
example.
make a motion to recess into executive session to discuss with legal counsel and receive legal advice related to the Woodlawn roadway project. The discussion will be pursuant to KSA 75-4319B2 for legal consultation with the city attorney, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship. Invite the city manager, city attorney, city engineer, and Neil Ghosh. The meeting will be for a period of 20 minutes. An open meeting will resume in the city council at 8:57.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Welch and a second by Ms. Hamburg for 20 minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're in executive session for 20 minutes. Whole executive session, no binding action was taken. I'm going to call the meeting back to order and request an extension to the executive session for 10 more minutes.
I'll make a motion to extend the executive session for 10 minutes, returning at 9:12.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Welch, a second by Mr. David. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Back in executive session for 10 minutes. We call the meeting back to order. No, we held an executive session. No binding action was taken. Move on to the next item, discussion and future issues. So it looks like we have a city council workshop on August 13th at 6:30 PM. We'll make sure that works for everybody. Do we have something we're going to talk about?
Yeah, we have a few things.
A few things? I figured you're probably going to talk about budget.
Budget's ready to go. I think we'll probably call a special meeting to pass a water conservation policy. Just an update to that to match some things with Wichita.
Is that
And then-
different than the one we passed here just a few weeks ago?
Yeah. We need to add some provisions to that one, and that more aligns because we get both sources. The one we passed, and Maria might have more information. She's looking into it now, but the one we passed was been the same one for many years.
With some updates, yeah. But okay,
Yeah. So we just need to reflect the newer version.
So you're talking with our utility advisory committee about that?
I have not.
I'd appreciate it if you would.
We will.
I know
So,
I've
yeah.
been ill, but Terry's picking up the slack there.
Yep.
So
Yep. And I had they did their comprehensive plan, and I talked to Terry for a while last week, but I'll reach back out and let him know.
Good. All right,
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Dean.
I'd also like to add future issues, and it could be along the same lines of talking about the special meeting and passing the water conservation. I think with the water restrictions and the drought response that we're seeing, I'd like to really seriously consider discussing how we could be more proactive and specifically on potential research and possibilities for design for increasing our reuse and gray water from CCUA. I think that's something that both Bel Aire and Park City should be considering at this moment so that we can be ahead of it if restrictions become even more restrictive. So I'd like to add that to some future. It doesn't necessarily have to be the next workshop, but at some point in the future, I think it would be a good thing for us to think through.
Okay. Well,
And just be more specific, gray water being used as a irrigation method for large water consumers in the city of Bel Aire and or Park City. Park City should be thinking about that as well.
Yeah, there are some ideas that we've been floating around out there with that, but yeah, I agree. We need to.
Obviously, we're early on in that
Okay.
idea. There's a lot of stuff that have to come together, but we should keep having that discussion.
All right. That won't solve the current situation, but it certainly would be help. All right.
Thank you.
Any other issues that you're planning on for next week?
One other small issue on Central Park sidewalk issue. As you know, the city of Bel Aire was the developer of Central Park for many, many years, and there's some lingering when to put in sidewalks that I would like to discuss with council, but it should be 15, 20 minutes.
Okay. Very good. Anything else we need to talk about?
Well, there's something I think we need to talk about.
Okay.
Wichita and Sedgwick County are both pushing really hard on sales tax. I think it's probably the time to at least have a serious discussion whether or not Bel Aire should do that. And if we decide that we want to, we could possibly get it on the same ballot measure as Wichita and Sedgwick County without an expense to Bel Aire.
Your date for things on the next ballot is early September. You'd have to move pretty fast to get that on the ballot. There's a meeting the 14th. I can't remember how far. That's a week from tomorrow. That I have been invited to with this county, Sedgwick County. The mayors have been invited to talk about their ideas on sales tax versus property tax. I will tell you my personal perspective is that that's a non-starter because Kansas is already the 12th highest taxing state in the country as far as individual taxes. It's 9.2%. The only, or 9.3%. The only one that's even close is Nebraska is at 9.2%, and all of our other neighboring states are much less than us on taxes. So trading one tax for another tax is not a solution. That doesn't reduce taxes. We got to find ways to cut taxes and be smarter about how we're using money. I don't know all those solutions there, but I can tell you on the big picture, You talk about why you're losing citizens. That's a big reason right there. And that's a big problem with the state of Kansas. But we can certainly talk about what we
I think we need to seriously talk about it because we're going to have people paying sales tax in Wichita and they live here and they're not going to get any benefit out of the Wichita sales tax. And I think if we do this, we should earmark it for something specific like sidewalks or parks or something like that, not just general fund.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
And I'm just saying, throw it out there and
yeah,
talk about
it's something, it's something to talk about. Okay.
And I think one of the things that has been mentioned at the county level is reducing property taxes, but offsetting the quality of living items like parks and exploration place and the zoo. And that could include or not include Bel Aire parks if we wanted to have that discussion. I don't see it as an additional. I see it as if Sedgwick County gets all the cities in line and everybody wants to decide to add a 1% Sedgwick County tax, sales tax, that somehow that would have a formula attached to it, and that would be distributed across to the other cities, and that would help us fund our parks, our rec. That's sort of how I see it if it happens. I don't know what will come of your discussions, but I'd be interested to hear your report back on it.
Right. We will find out and we'll let everybody know what we learn. So we're not going to solve those problems tonight, but we'll have an idea there of issue to discuss.
Right.
Okay. All right. Anything else? All right. If nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
A motion by Mr. Welch, a second by Mr. Dean. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Have a good night. We'll see everybody next Tuesday.